Howdy, all y'alls. While I have the time, obviously I have way too much time available because I'm on disability. Uh, when I was in Southern California, I had gone from airport ground transportation to driving for Paratransit, which is the short buses. And in the demographic at the shop that I worked at in Irvine, I don't know if it's done by Veolia anymore, but I had to have a CDL to drive. So, well, actually a pretty cool job, and because of my extensive experience in airport ground transportation, I never had any problems with mapping or finding ways to get things done. So I did various things like personal transport for handicapped seniors and stuff like that. Also, I did for group homes in the Southern California area, and work programs, and then like 100% disabled people. I don't know how to say 100%, but they couldn't do anything for themselves. So basically, I was transporting them from home to a care center where they would take care of them during the day, and then come back. And then I also had the work programs that I was also doing for Paratransit, the small buses. So I was basically a jack of all trades, driving these buses. Well, the shop that I worked in was a Teamster shop, and if the Teamsters get offended over anything I say, I mean, go ahead and shoot me, because that'll solve all my problems really quickly, and then somebody else has to take care of all of my junk. Okay, so anyway, the shop that I worked through was probably, I might be exaggerating, but not by much, 90% Latino. Now, Southern California, particularly at that time, has had really bad interracial relations between the whites, the Filipinos, the Koreans, and so on. So what was going on at this shop was basically the Latinos were harassing everybody who wasn't Latino. So they were trying to make it a 100% Latino shop, which is, I mean, I don't really care, because I don't think I have a racist bone in my body. I have no opinions. I don't think anybody's better than anybody. I don't think anybody's worse than anybody. I speak fractions of about 12 languages. I'm what you might call an internationalist. I take people on their merit and the way they treat other people and the way they treat me. I don't care what color your skin is. That's because of the spectrum of passengers that I've had to have driven over my entire transportation career. So anyway, when I became fearless was when the shop that I worked at, the dispatchers were all black or African American, or however you want to say. If it's in Britain, if you say somebody's black, they're most likely from South Asia. So, okay, so they're black. So there's a distinction. But anyway, American black, American African Americans. So the dispatch group decided I was going to be a target, because back then was pretty volatile, and I probably created a lot of my own stress by not knuckling down, but I caused my own stress by standing up, which most people wouldn't do, but I had no fear, because I could probably go back to my old job, driving airport ground transportation. So anyway, while I was at this shop, just to give you an example of the kind of horse crap that used to go on at this shop, I would be out doing my job, and the crew in the parking lot where my car was parked, they would park all the cutaway vans that they had. There's enough vans around. It was a huge shop, so there's probably 100 cutaway vans in the yard. So I was in the public parking area. So what they would do is they would park all of these vans all around my car so that I couldn't get out without having to move at least 2 cutaway vans to get my car out, and then have to move the vans back so I wasn't blocking traffic for everybody else. So that kind of stuff was pretty consistent. And then the other things that they would do is they'd give me really, really old cutaway buses, diesel buses with the Cummins diesel engine, but they had exhaust leaks and stuff like that. And you can tell when you're getting carbon monoxide poisoning from certain things. You start sweating when you're not supposed to be sweating, and all kinds of other stuff, which is also hazardous to the passengers, but this wasn't in their consideration. So anyway, it got to the point where, okay, it was a game, and then with this company, and I became fearless in steps. So what happened was the surrounding my car with cutaway buses, and so that I am inconvenienced, so that when I go home, okay, finally I caught on to that game pretty quick. So what I did was I pulled my car out, parked it, and took the keys to all the vans that were around my car, pulled a van back in, of course, took that key, and locked everything, and then drove out of the parking lot and threw all the keys down the road. So it's not like I wasn't contributing to the atmosphere. It's just letting them know that I know that they're bugging me. So then they stopped doing that, and then after that I started having problems with the schedulers were scheduling group home people with nonverbal autistic kids. It's a mix that does not work. You're not supposed to mix this, because the autistic kids are targets for the disabled kids, or the challenged kids mentally. It's a bad mix, and it creates problems in some circumstances where the driver can't have complete control. You take all your autistic kids to their autistic programs, you take all your work program kids to their work programs, and so forth. Well, I filed a grievance for this because there's potential trouble for the driver on this. So what they started doing was giving me the autistic kids who are basically uncontrollable and nonverbal. Now, I don't know how to explain this, but they know how to get on the bus and everything like that. But after that, if things don't go exactly the way they're supposed to go, these kids get upset. And then I have to call a dispatcher or somebody else to come and help control these autistic kids. Which, I mean, it doesn't bother me, except for the fact that the caretaker or the people who are running the home aren't home, because the kids are supposed to be at their program. And so when we have a problem, we have to call work dispatch to have a supervisor come over and solve the problem. Well, that turns into a problem, because then if you've got a mixed population and then autistic kids together who have this expectation to go from the home to the work program or to their care program or whatever. Then we had another situation where the schedulers were scheduling nonverbal patients who can't do anything for themselves for up to 4 hours on the bus. Well, as far as I understand, back then, the ADA regulation was that people could not be on the bus longer than 2 hours. That was the way things were supposed to be. So I started writing up grievances with regard to this because I didn't want to get in trouble for something that somebody else was doing on purpose. So anyway, the situation kept getting worse and worse and worse. And if I deviated from the manifest, like dropping off somebody early at a program, I would potentially get in trouble. But what was happening was they would give me a manifest with everything being jumped around everywhere, and I couldn't keep people on time to their programs or their individual hospital visits or care home or the entire spectrum. So because of my airport ground transportation experience, I had the ability to automatically compute exactly what time the group homes were open and what times the people were supposed to be there. And sometimes they would mix like a senior citizen on the bus with these group home people. That's not supposed to happen. So what I would do is I would go through, get all of my group home people taken care of, take care of the work program people, and then take my senior citizens. Well, sometimes they would have the senior citizen scheduled to ride on the bus for 4 hours. That's half a day. So I would cheat on the route, drop that senior citizen off either early or with their permission, or I would have to drive around with them until they were able to meet their thing, but I would be dropping off everybody else first. So things became so bad that at one point we were at least 2 or 3 times a week, or 2 or 3 times a month, or even sooner, I'd file a grievance, but not for myself, but for the passengers, because the passengers are the people who are getting abused by dispatchers harassing me because they think they can get away with it. It was a whole vicious circle. And I stood up and said, this is not right. You can't have people on the bus for 4 hours. I don't want to get in trouble for having somebody on the bus for 4 hours, so I'm going to drop them off. And it was a continual thing, continuous battle. And so I had, and this was before, obviously, this was in Irvine, California. So I finally, when I had met my ex, had a way out of this situation, because you have certain things that you need to be consistent. You have to have time to distance, you have to have no missing time, and yada yada yada. So anyway, we ended up with the whole thing going through and through and through and through, and finally, after I started filing complaints with the various government entities to reach a resolution to some of these things, because the grievance area wasn't working, so I had to start filing complaints with local government agencies. And that was a year of battles. And by the way, because I'm white, the ACLU would not represent me, even if I'm trying to protect people of color or disabled or anything like that. ACLU would not respond at all. We don't handle things like this, that, and the other. And we don't handle discrimination against white people. Okay, well, that's fine. That's their prerogative. I understand all about revenge and getting back and politics and everything like that. But then again, you have my passengers who are ADA and senior citizens and people of various nations. Because I know that when I was there, I had a bunch of people who were Filipino who were the company was also trying to out. And not the company itself, but it's the other drivers who were trying to, the Latino drivers that were trying to out the Filipino drivers. And so here I am fighting the battle, and I finally I won one battle, but this was at the very end, just before I went to Kentucky. I did win a labor and wage complaint against the company. But by that time, I was so worn out from fighting all the time. One of my mentor friends that I would become super emotional, and the only reason why I was emotional is because it's either be emotional or start breaking things. So I would release things through tears and the stress of fighting all the time. And he knows who he is. He probably won't watch this, but he knows who he is, the things that I would talk to him about. And so anyway, I ended up winning in the very end after like 2 years of fighting and fighting and fighting. And so it was just a bad situation where the Latinos were trying hard to push everybody out of the company to make it 100% Latino. Now, my supervisor was black, and he understood exactly what I was doing. And at the very end, I won my wage and labor claim, but the company, Veolia Transportation, refused to pay. So what am I going to do? I quit my job and moved to Kentucky because I was just tired of having to battle these people all the time. And every time I would win, they would find something else worse and worse. And now one of the dispatchers who was causing me the most trouble was black. And he I'm not going to mention his name or anything like that, but he had his own problems. He was a long distance runner. The only problem is he never kept himself hydrated, so he ended up with failing kidneys. So they put him on dialysis. And what happened with the dialysis, and I watched this happen to him over that time, and I don't know if this is a vindication or what not, but the science goes against the spirituality of the situation. So what ended up happening to this dispatcher was he ended up on dialysis because because his kidneys had failed, and he was still doing dispatch. But what happened is they got something wrong in his dialysis. So the dialysis machines started taking out too much calcium from his bones. In his body, and I watched this, he was a fairly large, robust person, bigger than me. I'm 5'8", and used to be around 180 pounds. And he was about 6 feet tall and heavier than me, but he slowly, for whatever reason, started to shrink. And what happened was the dialysis machines were taking too much calcium out of his bones, and his spine was starting to collapse, and other parts of his body were shrinking. And he basically ended up suffocating from the dialysis because he could no longer breathe, and he ended up passing away. I don't think he deserved to die that way, but I still think it's pretty ironic that he died that way. I don't think anybody deserves to die in that kind of revenge situation. I know that he caused me a lot of grief, and him and his buddies and his the ethnic identity things that were going on in Southern California. Trust me, in my opinion, Southern California is just as racist as any other part of East Coast, any of the other states that they call racist. Southern California is the same, if not just as bad. And I don't hate Latinos or Mexicans or anything. I think they're awesome people that have great value systems. It just boils down to politics. It it's somebody can be a Christian and a lousy politician. What are you doing? Come here. Wow. You're not innocent. So anyway, I had dealt with all of this stuff and fought for other people's rights and handicap rights and disabled rights and senior citizens' rights and everything like that. And in the end, I ended up moving to Paducah, Kentucky, which it is a different story. But that's part of how I became a fighter. Is I just didn't think it was reasonable or fair that a group of people, and they're not all Latinos, so I'm not singularly focusing on Latinos. It's just a specific group of Latinos that were causing all the trouble. Plus the black schedulers and dispatchers. So they were working together, I guess. I don't know if it's a collusion, but anyway. So when I went to Kentucky, there was a different brand of people not liking white people, and okay, that's fine, no problem. Oh my gosh. So anyway, I ended up moving to Kentucky, which started a whole nother chapter, and I went from being fearless to being completely neutral because I had lots of skills and lots of assets as far as knowing how to do paratransit and stuff like that. That in group homes and people with personality disorders and other things, and also driving kids and parents to homes without addresses. So, that in Kentucky, the paradigm changed. And it wasn't for the worse. I don't think. Anyway, there's another story on there. I'm trying to get this done while I had the time, so I don't go crazy. Thanks for watching. I don't know what when I became fearless is probably going to be my next video. When I became fearful is probably what it's going to be my next video, if anybody's curious. So I've got time on my hands. I'm trying to burn time because I haven't done any work or anything like that, so I'm wide awake. So I'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching. Trying to not to be so boring. I don't know if I'll do a music video or not. So there it is. Talk to you later. Goodbye.